She wanted a little girl to treat like a little princess, to dress up. I think she wanted somebody that she could raise as her own and maybe get back what she didn't have.
She had this trunk at the edge of her bed, and she would pull it out, and everything was for a baby girl. She wanted a baby girl. Something she longed for, something she wanted.
And Danny Lynn came, and that was her dream.
I was so happy for her. I was just so happy for her.
But only 5 months later, Anna Nicole was dead.
She left behind a man who loved her and a daughter she never got to see grow up.
I have a daughter who doesn't have a mom. And if I have to paint a picture for Danny Lynn of who her mom was, I do it for Danny Lynn. We are headed to a little town called Mejia, Texas. Danny Lynn's a teenager now, and you know, she doesn't really know a ton of things about her mom. I thought, why not go back to Anna's beginnings and kind of see where Anna got her start? It's keeping her memory alive for my daughter. Mejia, population 7,459 people. Anna told me she always wanted to get out of there. But I am excited to meet Anna's friend, Joe. I'd never met her before. She kind of held the key to a lot of stories that I thought was important for our journey.
My name is Joe McLemore. Anna Nicole and I were best friends. So I'm really looking forward to meeting Danny Lynn for the first time.
Oh
my goodness. Can I hug y'all?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Hi, so good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, after all this time.
Oh my goodness. You are your mommy. You look just like her. When I first met her, that's exactly what I remember, just like that. You're so beautiful. Anna Nicole Smith's birth name was Vicki Lynn Hogan. She lived in Houston with her family, but she did have problems in Houston.
Her mom, Virgie, is 16 when she gets married and gives birth to Vicki. The father, Donald Hogan, is soon out of the picture.
Vicki Lynn's mother, Virgie, was a deputy sheriff in Houston.
She carried herself like a deputy sheriff. She was very stern and forthright and very strict. Vicki's childhood life was tough.
She was in an abusive situation. She was sexually abused and physically abused. That's what she told me, and that's what she would cry about. I wasn't there, but I believe her.
She is sent to Mejia, this tiny, dusty town, to live with her Aunt Kay and her cousins. Mejia had nothing. Mejia was like being sent to the end of the world.
We had nothing in Mejia. We didn't have a bowling alley. We didn't have anything. What we did is, it was called the drag. And you go up and down the street, and you drink beer, and you talk to people, and hang out the window, hello, and things like that. That was it.
This is the house where Anna Nicole lived with her aunt and her cousins. As you can tell now, it's vacant.
2-bedroom, but we made the porch into a 3-bedroom, a 3 little bedroom.
She moved hoping for, a better environment for herself, and at that point, we invited her to come live with us. So this is the high school where your mommy went, Mejia High School.
This would be her 10th grade year.
Yes.
That was her last year in school too, I think.
It was. When she went to school here in Mejia, she was miserable. She was having a hard time with being bullied. At that point, I think, after all she'd been through, all the struggles in her life, she was finally fed up and she said, you know what, I'm done. And she said, I'm quitting. I don't want to be here anymore. And we actually went and picked her up the day she walked out of the school, and she never went back. So this is where your mama and I used to hang out. We'd come over here after work or between, the shifts and just cruise through here.
Was there anything else to do with?
Yeah, there's nothing else to do here, Danny Lynn. There's no movie theaters. I mean, there wasn't Starbucks or anything. Basically, the main place to eat was Crispy's.
Give me directions to Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken.
Getting directions to Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken.
This is Crispy's. You can already smell the chicken.
You can smell it. They're not even opening, you can smell it.
It's so great. So I was working here, and she would come in every day and she'd order a large drink, but she always looked really sad to me.
Sad?
Yeah, she always looked very, very sad. But when she started working here, we immediately headed off, and one of the memories I have of her is we'd sit here together and stare out the window and just watch traffic go by. She was so perfect to me, perfect face. And I would tell her, you're so, so pretty.
She gets pretty sweet on the guy who runs the Fry-O-Lator, whose name is Billy Smith. And so before you know it, she and Billy Smith are an item, and not much longer, Billy Smith marries Vicky and makes her Vicky Smith.
Billy was also a high school dropout, and they were so young. He was 16, she was 17, and then she had her son when she was 18.
I thought to myself, I'm so lonely. And I thought, well, if I have a baby, I'll never be lonely again. And I have my son, and I'm not lonely, and I love him, and he's great and wonderful.
Her and Billy started having problems. They couldn't make things work out. So she decided, I'm leaving. She left Billy.
Vicky leaves her husband and decides to move back to Houston with her mom, Virgie. She has barely a 10th grade education. She has work experience at a fried chicken restaurant, and she's now a single mom with no other apparent skills.
She works a little at Walmart, and she works a little at Red Lobster, but they don't earn a ton of money. So what she does is walk into a gentleman's club and ask if she can get a job.
There were a number of strip clubs near the Walmart where she worked, and one of them had a big blue and white sign that had a woman in a bikini.
I would drive by the work every day, and there was this big neon sign. It was blue and white, and it had this lady in high heel shoes, and she had the bikini on, and it would flash tiptoe and back, tiptoe and back, like that. And I was like, oh, how neat. I didn't know it was topless, though. I didn't know anything about that.
You must have been pretty naive.
I was, trust me.
Vicky may have been naive, but she was about to learn a lot very quickly.
Everything in Texas is bigger and bolder. And there was no place that was wilder and maybe more fun than Houston back in the 80s.
It's a port city, and I think port cities are more kind of fluid. People are passing through, and maybe they think they won't be remembered so they can act out a little more. It was a tawdry place in a lot of ways. The huge, sprawling gentlemen's clubs were founded here. Breast enhancements were developed here. People were always making themselves up here.
In 1986, Anna Nicole's name was Vicky Lynn Smith. She had just moved back to Houston with her son, whose father was out of the picture.
She needed a way to support herself. She's very uneducated, and she had to get a quick job or a quick fix in order to take care of her son. So she did start dancing initially because that's the only way she had a way to make income.
My former wife, Melissa, used to work at the executive suite in North Houston. It was a higher class gentlemen's entertainment club, and she was there the day Vicky Smith walked in the door to apply for a job as a waitress and later become a dancer. First thing Melissa, my wife, noticed was that Anna was just terrified, literally terrified. I mean, she was definitely green to that kind of lifestyle. She was always tall, a large girl, and she was very self-conscious about that and very, very shy, introverted.
It was tough taking my clothes off, and it was tough doing the table dances. The day that I went on to dance the first time, I ran out because I was so horrified and so ashamed of myself. But when I was driving to work, I looked down and saw all this money and I was like, wow, and it was like $50. I'm like, whoa, $50. And back then, that was a lot of money for me.
She was living with her friend Melissa, and her son Daniel was living with her mother, Virgie.
Anna wanted him to move in with her. Her biggest fear was that Daniel would forget about her and not ever want to be with her again. Daniel was her life. She said, I am going to be the sexiest in here because I need money and I need to take care of my son. And she pulled that off very quickly.
I've represented some strippers as a criminal defense attorney. They're assessing the room. They're looking for the guy who has an ability to spend. Then they have to figure out, well, which role does he want me to play?
Anna developed a baby's voice when she talked to guys, and she would get in that mode, and they would just break down. They would eat that up.
The irony is that when she started out, Anna Nicole was, in her own words, flat-chested.
She didn't have B, C, D. She didn't have that. She had little tiny breasts.
And so she begins saving money and now begins to engage in a series of breast augmentation procedures.
That's when she really started making the big bucks. Men loved the fact that here was this big old Texas girl with that big old blonde Texas hair.
Believe it or not, as good as she was at dancing, it was still in her mind that this was just not who I am. She never felt comfortable with it. She would just continuously say, you know, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm disrespecting myself, my mother, my child.
So it's 1991, and Vicky's been dancing for 4 years when an unlikely figure is wheeled in the front door. He is J. Howard Marshall II.
J. Howard Marshall is about to change Vicky's life because he is not your average 87-year-old billionaire. J. Howard Marshall comes from a prominent East Coast family. He's Yale-educated, works in the Roosevelt administration on oil projects, and eventually becomes associated with the famous Koch brothers, which turns him into a billionaire. So Marshall's second wife is stricken with Alzheimer's, and he's a very lonely man. So he then begins a 10-year relationship with a very exotic, flamboyant stripper named Lady Walker.
He lavished her with flowers, love notes, diamonds. He was still married, and both he and Lady Walker agreed that it would be very wrong for them to have sex.
He spent millions and millions of dollars on her over the years. But whatever their relationship was about, it didn't seem to be about sex.
He felt like he was her protector. He would write her these florid romantic notes, which she would respond to in kind. And along with giving her these florid romantic notes, he'd give her checks, lots of them.
So the relationship is very devoted, but Lady Walker suddenly dies.
Here was Marshall. He'd lost his wife, who he really did love, to Alzheimer's. He'd lost his paramour, who I think he really did love, who died on the operating table getting a facelift.
So it's October 1991, and Marshall is despondent. So when he wheels into Gigi's one lunchtime and sees this 24-year-old blonde dancer in front of him, his heart is taken.
He had no will to live, and I went over to see him, and he got a little twinkle in his eyes, and he asked me to dance for him, and I did. He was very funny. Really funny. He got very brilliant, very smart. Gosh, he had so many stories. I mean, he was an amazing man. He was just really amazing.
From the very first time she met Howard, she thought of him as a grandfather figure. And once we met Howard, I mean, you thought the same way. Very likable man, very knowledgeable, very smart.
They would phone call every day and talk to each other, and they were so cute on the phone. She would call him Sugar Booger and Sweetheart and all that, and they needed each other in more of a sense than people understood. And so they just took care of each other.
Marshall had 2 sons, and the son he was closest to was Pierce Marshall, who was this very upright, waspy, proper person. I think Anna Nicole would have just sent him screaming from the room.
Pierce wants to put an end to it right away, but J. Howard Marshall II tells his son Pierce, "She makes me enjoy life again, but out."
So within a week of meeting Vicky, Marshall proposes marriage. She says no, because she's determined to make something of herself on her own.
So what J. Howard Marshall doesn't know is that Vicky is in love with someone else. And in this case, it's a woman.
There's a game that dancers use in a club wherein they work the guy with a story, that they're together as women, and most of the time they're just playing the role, you know, to get the guy to spend his money. But that pretty quickly evolved into the real thing with Anna.
So around the same time that she meets J. Howard Marshall, she meets somebody else. One day she walks into a gay club and all eyes are on Anna. But her eyes are on this woman named Sandy, who works in a store that sells garden supplies. Anna shows up at her house in a big white limousine with flowers and gifts.
And their relationship got very, very serious. Anna said she loved Sandy. They had wedding rings. You know, they were going to carry on a continual relationship. She even mentioned that, you know, that was going to be her life.
They lived together for a while, and it seemed like they had a very loving relationship.
And she had a boyfriend, a girlfriend. It was not abnormal for Anna to have several boyfriends or girlfriends at the same time. She didn't hide it, and it didn't bother her.
She seems to be a woman of considerable appetites. She likes a lot of input. She eats and drinks freely. She seems to take on a fair amount of lovers. Thanks to her time with J. Howard Marshall II, she develops a new appetite for extremely expensive jewelry.
He gives Vicky jewelry, a house, a red Mercedes convertible, and breast augmentation surgery.
And he buys her a ranch and Arabian horses to go with the ranch. Vicky loves animals, and she especially loves her horses.
This is Rose. This is my horse.
So he takes Vicky to his favorite restaurant, Red Lobster, and there he proposes again.
I mean, he's a billionaire, and his favorite restaurant is Red Lobster.
And he actually asked her to marry him at the table. And Anna said, no, I'm not going to get married until I'm able to support myself and make it on my own. I'm going to make it on my own.
So at the time, even while she's engaged in this kind of elaborate courtship with J. Howard Marshall II, she has a boyfriend, and he takes a few pictures of her and sends them to a photographer, manager, scout for Playboy in the Texas area.
She came in, I was quite taken. She looked like an Amazon woman to me. Very, very tall, 5'11", wore 5-inch heels, a spandex dress, this god-awful blue eyeshadow. But underneath all of that, you saw the pretty face. She walked a little clumsy. She walked like a duck. But Anna Nicole Smith was the sweetest girl you would ever want to meet. I mean, you would want her as a sister. Sent the film off. The very next day, Playboy called and they said, this girl's gonna be a playmate.
Around 1992, my uncle called me, who lived here, and said, Nikki made Playboy. And I said, what? He said, she made Playboy. And I said, she did not. And I was kind of weirded out. I was proud of her, but I was like, she's up here now, and I'm down here, and she's never gonna... I'm a little person now, I think, was what I was feeling.
She appears on the cover of Playboy in March of 1992. It is a life-changing event because Paul Marciano, who runs Guess Jeans, sees her photos.
Marciano calls Playboy, and a meeting is set up.
He came to see me, and I didn't think he liked me at first. So they made up my hair, and they put a dress on me and stuff, and I remember him walking in the trailer. I'll never forget. He walked up in the trailer and his mouth just dropped. He was like, I was like, ooh, I think he likes me now.
But Marciano thinks Vicky needs a new name. So together they come up with Anna Nicole Smith.
When Anna Nicole Smith first sort of burst on the scene, she didn't look like any model anyone had seen for a long time. She was curvy, she was voluptuous, at a time when models were very, very thin.
So much of the beauty that came before that was really about this emphasis on the narrowness of the body that you just couldn't even achieve. Like, I'm like, am I even a person? So when you saw her, it was like, we are really doing something different. You know, you sort of like think about blondes as being this kind of metaphor for female power and female empowerment and the control that we actually have over men. It seems so exciting.
Those pictures alone, I think, mesmerized the world.
That first day shooting for Guess makes Anna Nicole Smith a worldwide star. And she's about to get everything she could have possibly have dreamed of, and a lot of things that she never dreamed of that are kind of her nightmare.
The Guess campaign is major. It shows up everywhere. It plays up Anna's glamour and makes her hugely famous.
Meanwhile, Playboy continued to put her in the magazine, eventually naming her Playmate of the Year.
I worked with her over a year's period of time, and you could see the difference because when she came in, she was just a girl from a fried chicken place, and now she was a big star.
So beautiful.
She wasn't going to trust anybody. She was just going to perform for you. It was like she was probably back in the strip club. She really had the ability to make you believe that you were very special.
She starts modeling overseas. Her billboard ads turn up on Norwegian and Swedish highways. They're so sexy that there are traffic accidents.
It got to the point where the parliament in Norway actually had a debate as to whether the billboards featuring Anna Nicole Smith should be taken down because they represented a threat to public safety. Anna Nicole Smith, that name, that face, that figure became a topic of international fascination. And where does someone like Anna Nicole Smith belong? Hollywood.
Here she is, Anna Nicole Smith. Anna, how are you? I'm Regis.
She's signed by William Morris, one of the town's biggest talent agencies. There's a film being made called The Hudsucker Proxy. Anna Nicole Smith winds up into Hudsucker Proxy as a fashion model named Zaza.
Did you have many lines?
Well, just one.
One line.
Yeah, but I got to growl like a cat in heat.
What does that sound like? Just give us a little preview of the movie. What does the cat sound like?
Something like rare.
She has her first line on the screen, in which she employs her boyfriend to punch Tim Robbins.
And Sid says you stole it.
What are you waiting on, Clarence? Pop him one.
But Buzz.
She makes the rounds on talk shows like the Arsenio Hall Show.
You're making the acting transition now. Didn't you just finish a project?
I just finished the Hudsucker Proxy, and I'm fixing
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Hudsucker
Yeah,
Proxy.
I just like to see you say Hudsucker.
The first time I met Anna Nicole, there was a sparkle about her. As a journalist, you're trying to stay objective and all those kinds of things, and I have to admit, I just kind of fell in love with her.
She is so over the top in her sirenhood. She doesn't just play the girlfriend, she plays like the apotheosis of the va-va-voom girlfriend. And that's what she plays in Naked Gun 33 1/3.
What are you doing?
I'm just contemplating my next move.
Your bishop is exposed.
So Anna Nicole Smith appears in these 2 movies, and she acquits herself fairly well. And it looks as if she might end up being something of a 1990s version of Jane Mansfield, who was a famous sex pot from the 1950s.
Her figure is kind of her calling card, but it also leads to medical problems.
She was in constant pain with her back from her implants. Her back wasn't strong enough to carry them. And so the doctors started to give her pain medication.
She also suffers from migraines, so she's on all kinds of pain medication. She winds up in the hospital accidentally overdosing.
Have you used drugs at all?
I've never used drugs. I don't use drugs. You know, I had Vicodin and Xanax. That's prescription drugs that I have to take for my migraines and for insomnia. I mean, I don't consider that hard drugs. It doesn't make me high. It's just, you know, I've been taking it for years. It just helps my headaches.
You were very, very pale and very sick, and you had things in your arm, needles in your arms and things. What had happened?
I'm fine, I'm well, I'm here. I'm not overdosed, I'm not dead. I think they're trying to make it look like a Marilyn Monroe remake.
One of the most famous stars in Hollywood history is dead at 36.
Anna Nicole is a huge Marilyn Monroe fan.
I hate a careless man.
J. Howard Marshall even rents Marilyn Monroe's old house for her.
Marilyn's window.
When did you start loving Marilyn Monroe?
I don't know, we just connect somehow. We have this special bond. It's just like, I don't know, I used to wish she was my mom.
Yeah?
I want to be the sex symbol. I want to be what she was. I want to do the movies she did. I want to sing. I want to dance. I want to do all that.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
People have a perception that she was this dumb blonde. She wasn't. Not at all. She could do anything that she wanted to do.
What she decides to do after 4 years of turning down his proposals is to marry J. Howard Marshall.
And they have a wedding ceremony for the ages. Her son is one of the ring bearers, along with one of his cousins. The ring is attached to a beautiful fluffy pillow. The groom is all dressed in white as he's wheeled up to the altar. 2 doves are released to symbolize the beauty of their relationship. You may now kiss the bride.
She even tries to get him to stand next to her at the altar, but he's an old man. He's too frail to get out of his wheelchair.
Anna Nicole Smith is 26. J. Howard Marshall is 89. And $400 million.
$400 million? I'd
Yes.
marry him.
So after they married, they start to think about things that lots of new couples thinking about, which is having children.
She and J. Howard Marshall consult a fertility expert, but he is 89, so that's not happening.
By now, sirens are going off in Howard Marshall's son's head about what's going to happen to the money he expects to inherit when his father dies.
Anna Nicole lives in Los Angeles, and J. Howard Marshall lives in Houston. And when J. Howard Marshall visits Anna in Los Angeles, Pierce hires detectives to watch them to make sure that they don't go and try to change the terms of J. Howard Marshall's will.
But it was never about that. And she loved this man. She would sit close to him with her legs on the couch over him, and he would laugh. About 6 months after they got married, Mr. Marshall got very sick. We were shooting in Las Vegas, and she flew down to be with him.
Pierce didn't like Anna Nicole Smith, this young 20-something stripper who's wormed her way into his father's life at the end of it? No way is he going to give her one dime. And it gets really ugly.
J. J. Howard Marshall is in the hospital and his condition is clearly on the decline.
And so enter his son Pierce, who'd been given power of attorney. Marshall's caregiver, Betty Morgan, becomes his guardian.
And then Anna finds herself cut off financially. And at one point, she was only permitted to see her husband for 30 minutes a visit. The family said that was because of the doctor's instructions, but she was heartbroken.
They had armed security guards just standing by the door. And when your husband's got his arms out, going like this, lady, love, please don't leave me. And I'm leaving them. He's like thinking in his head, where's my wife going?
The old man really had no control because he was essentially dying.
14 months after their wedding, J. Howard Marshall died.
90-year-old oil man J. Howard Marshall II has been dead for a week, but his remains have yet to be put to rest because of the legal bickering between his widow and his family.
When he died, a huge fight ensues over whether we're going to cremate J. Howard Marshall II or whether we're going to bury J. Howard Marshall II.
They have to go to court to settle this thing, which is pretty bizarre, and obviously the press goes wild.
Anna Nicole Smith Marshall stepped off the elevator on the 5th floor into a horde of news media, who first began to sag back, and then when their quarry changed directions, it was off to the races.
Anna Nicole Smith has conceded to the cremation of her deceased millionaire husband, J. Howard Marshall. She also has agreed to share a portion of the ashes with the oil baron's children.
So then they have separate funerals.
So at the funeral of her husband, Anna Nicole Smith is wearing the dress that she married him in, and to commemorate his passing, she sings. She sings "Wind Beneath My Wings," the Bette Midler hit.
The wind beneath my
J. Howard Marshall, when he dies, leaves a massive fortune. Estimates range up to $1.6 billion. However, he leaves nothing in his will to his wife, Anna Nicole Smith, or her son, Daniel.
He'd left her nothing. Zero. 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 He was taking care of her. There was a suggestion, a promise, was there a contract? Clearly not. She didn't get a contract.
It turns out Pierce is the main beneficiary, so Anna Nicole sues Pierce in Texas for a share of the estate.
It's going to be a battle royale between the bombshell and the billionaire.
I have nothing to say. Thank you very much.
But it will take years before the case gets before a jury.
In this journal entry, Anna writes, "Me and Daniel have no money to live on because of the press and getting no work. I miss my husband. He would just kill Pierce if he knew what was going on." You know what her favorite thing was to do? Have you ever seen a VCR tape?
Yes.
Okay. She'd go up here to this Blockbuster and she would rent movies and she'd just sit in the bed for like the whole weekend and order takeout food. She loved to just stay in and watch scary movies. And then she'd paint. I planned to take Danny Lynn to Los Angeles because I thought it was important. Her mom lived half of her life in LA. I thought it would be great to have her sit down with Ray Martino, who shed some insight on her life prior to me meeting him.
Hi, babe. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Good to see you.
Hi, honey.
Ray, what year did you meet Anna?
1995. Starting to cast my film. And we got the script to Anna. She read it. We got a call the next day and she says, "I want this part." She had a big price tag on her, but we could only afford a certain amount. The agency, William Morris, said, "Don't do this film." And she says, "I get a chance to play different characters and I don't want to always play these bimbos."
In To the Limit, she plays a CIA double agent. Anna Nicole Smith shoots a lot of guys.
To the Limit went straight to video.
This is what I look like when I'm sober.
Her dream was to be a serious actor.
I don't know if I can say the right words, Joe.
She was very, very talented, very deep, tremendously emotional.
She makes another movie with Ray Martino. It's called Skyscraper, but it's only seen overseas.
William Morris and Anna parted ways, and things weren't going well for her.
What had appeared to be excellent opportunities started to dry up.
She connects with this entertainment lawyer named Howard K. Stern. He soon becomes her confidant and her advisor.
Here we go, right here.
On top of her career problems, she's also having problems with her implants.
I had an apartment in Burbank, and she was in the bedroom, and she started crying, screaming and yelling. And we ran into the bedroom. She had a hand over her breast, and her breast exploded. So I rushed her to the hospital, and she was in terrific pain.
She's got migraines, stomach problems, breast implants causing back pains. She's got seizures. She's taking methadone for pain, Klonopin for those seizures. She's taking a lot of medication.
I was on prescription pain medication, and I was taking too much, and I went into a coma for that. When I came out of the coma, I couldn't talk, and I couldn't walk. It was pretty bad. It was real bad.
Can we get through here, please?
There aren't many offers and not much money coming in. Anna Nicole declares bankruptcy.
The California federal bankruptcy judge finds that Pierce was conspiring with his lawyer and his accountant to cheat Anna out of her portion of the inheritance.
Former Playboy playmate Anna Nicole Smith is a multi-million-dollar winner. A Los Angeles federal court awarded Smith almost $450 million of her husband J. Howard Marshall's estate.
She goes from 0 to 447 million. Cha-ching.
Now she's a millionaire. Wait, there's another court in another state that could take it all away. But she's about to reinvent herself.
Hello, Romeo. Hey, Punkapoo.
She says yes to a reality show.
And her life is going to get crazier and stranger than ever before.
Anna Nicole Smith's wild night at the American Music Awards.
It was this surreal moment where Anna Nicole Smith winds up in front of Ruth Bader Ginsburg